All I can honestly say is wow. I just got done watching the Breaking Ground. This is episode 1. This was the debut episode for the new reality series featuring the superstars of NXT, the superstars of tomorrow. I can honestly tell you that I sat at work today and I thought about this show. About what this was going to be and what my expectations were. Honestly, I've heard a lot of people talk about the show. I did not watch any of the previews, but honestly, this 30-minute show honestly really did blow me away. This blew me out of the water. I thought this show was going to be a sort of scripted reality show featuring the stars of NXT. I was not expecting reality. I mean, this to me, if anything was fake, if anything was written by somebody, I would be really surprised. I thought that honestly, there was a lot of there's a lot of reality shows still out there. I know that it's not like it was 10 years ago when the reality boom hit with shows like Survivor and Big Brother and Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire, and the list can go on and on. But reality television is really cheap to do, and I didn't know if this was something that WWE really wanted to get into. I know that The Ultimate Fighter is a reality show that's done by UFC, and honestly, it has a following. It's been going on for probably 13 years now, I would guess. I think it debuted like in 2002. I might be off by a year or two. But, you know, it still comes on, you know, year after year, and it still finds a way to find somebody who's going to be the next UFC star. And every year is a lot like when they do Tough Enough for WWE. They find people within the show and they still offer them deals in order to become part of the show. But man, this show was good. Honestly, they went down to NXT, they went to the Performance Center, and they followed around a handful of people. We see Bayley driving around during her, you know, daily routine. She talks about the fact that this is something that she's been wanting to do since she's been watching wrestling as a kid. You know, she always watched wrestling, and then she saw stars like Trish Stratus and Lita and how cool they came off, and she knew that this was something that she was going to want to do for the rest of her life. So now here she is as the women's champion in NXT, working at the Performance Center. And, you know, she just says that she's in her car. She might be in traffic. She stops at a red light and she looks over at somebody next to her. She wonders if they're living their dream like she is living hers. We see Tanner for less than a hot minute walking into the Performance Center, signing his WWE contract. This was shot on the 9th of September. He signs his deal to start working out. He's met by Albert, the lead trainer for NXT, and he's told this is the day that's going to change your life. It's going to make you or break you from here on out. We follow around Tino Sabatelli, who is a guy that honestly I've never heard of. This is a guy that you know, played in the NFL for, I believe they said 6 years, and they showed pictures of him playing for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's somebody who's been in the NXT system for a little bit. He's been suffering with a concussion problem, and he's had to be on the sideline for 3 weeks, and he ends up being a big part of the show. And Tino Sabatelli is a guy that I've honestly never heard of along the way, and he sort of tells this story. He's working out in the gym. And you know, he's trying to make the transition to becoming a professional wrestler. The buildup of this show builds us to the end, where basically he is having to go do concussion testing to see if he's going to be able to move on, or if he has a problem that WWE is going to, you know, basically say that he's not fit to be able to wrestle. But Tino Sabatelli is led into an office where he meets with a manager, and at the end of the show, he is basically the cliffhanger to see if he's going to be able to stay in NXT or if he's going to be able to be sent off and be released and have to move on to the next point of his life. Baron Corbin, a guy that I got to watch wrestle live twice on the NXT shows here in Sacramento over the weekend. He's a guy that honestly hasn't really blown me away since he's turned heel in NXT. I really thought that he had something as a babyface. I thought they needed to add some depth to his character, and they did that by them turning him heel. It just happened to be that I sort of turned off on him. But I actually got a chance to meet Baron and talk to him for a few minutes. I thought that he's a real interesting guy. He's got a real sort of set look. When NXT was building him up and he had the feud against Bull Dempsey, they were sort of treating him like he was the next Goldberg. And everybody can't sort of use this gimmick where they go in and, they're undefeated for a matter of time. They did it with Rusev. They did it with Corbin. They did it with... they've done it with a lot of wrestlers, but they just don't lose. And it's almost like they get to the point where, like, okay, you're undefeated, but once you lose, you're going to really drop down a peg. I mean, honestly, look at Rusev. I mean, this guy was looked at as one of the main stars of WWE. He goes into WrestleMania 31. He loses to John Cena. Not only does he lose the United States Championship, but he loses his undefeated streak. And now here we are in October at Hell in a Cell. This guy's wrestling on the pre-show, and I know that there's like stuff going on because of him and Lana, and people say there's heat there and things like that. But from wrestling in one of the I guess you can say main events, because it featured John Cena at WrestleMania, and now here you are in October and you're in some random 6-man tag as a part of Team European or whatever they're calling it. That's not a good spot to be in. But Baron Corbin, they highlight the fact that this is the guy that played in the NFL. He was a big standout in college. He's a 3-time Gold Glove boxing guy. He's been in NXT for a while. He was in Tampa. Then he made the transition to moving to Orlando. And he feels that he's ready to move on to the next level, but he's trying to find out what it's going to take in order for somebody to say, you're the next guy and you need to move on. We see Sarah Del Rey as being one of the lead trainers there at the Performance Center. We meet Albert. They're going to be a big part. They have sit-down interviews where basically they talk about what it's going to take for these people. They explain the road that they've taken, and they talk a lot about Devin Taylor, who is, of course, the NXT backstage announcer, but little did I know until the point of where she was released. I didn't even know she was trained to become a wrestler, but Sarah Del Rey is going over the fact that in the last year, she's had 2 sort of major injuries. It's made her take a lot of time away from training to wrestle, and Albert is pushing the fact of trying to find out if Devin Taylor is physically fit to become a wrestler. He goes over the fact that for some people that is in NXT now, NXT is their ceiling. For some people, it's getting to here and able to push themselves to be able to push on to the next spot, to become a star in WWE and, become the next future guy. Because, I mean, that's really what the Performance Center is for. I don't think the Performance Center is supposed to be about NXT becoming this huge brand and becoming the number 2 name in professional wrestling. It's about getting people there and even, finding out that somebody that NXT is using as a mid-carder, maybe even as a lower guy, finding a spot for them in the main roster. I mean, there might become a day when, of course, you want NXT to be able to push everything out of every single person there along the way. But it's like in the old territory days where, a guy in a territory might be looked at as a guy that is in order to push something over. He leaves a territory and he goes over to the next one, and they might be using him as the main eventer because he found a niche and it was able to work, and he's able to go there. Devin Taylor, of course, just recently got released, and I'm thinking that that's probably going to be a big storyline building from here. They follow around who they call Whoop. I've never heard her called Whoop. I've always known her as Jasmine or as Chick Kick. Recently, they just changed her name to Aaliyah. But this is somebody that I used to watch here on YouTube. She used to make videos. She's from Canada. She met up with Assault and Battery, Ravi, in a few of his videos. When they would go to Monday Night Raw. They wouldn't go together, but they'd always, sort of run into each other there. There was a time when Ravi went to an independent show which she was featured on, and she was in his video. And it's pretty cool. I mean, she's somebody that I'm really rooting for, to be able to say that somebody had the same hobby as I did, as making, watching wrestling and then making videos talking about wrestling, to be able to actually live out a dream. I mean, for anybody watching this who's a wrestling fan, who hasn't sat there and daydreamed about what it would be like if you were a professional wrestler? And this is somebody that's just like you or me, that was able to push herself to become that next thing. And I believe she was signed to NXT at 18. Here she is at, on the show, they're talking about her being 19. Now she's 20, pushing herself to be there. And then here she is, dealing with the fact that she has this awesome place to train with, but she wants to wrestle. She wants to be used on the shows, and she wants to be actually wrestling to be able to show what she is and what she can do. Apollo Crews gets to tell his story about basically his father bringing his family over from Nigeria, him training to become a professional wrestler, and he doesn't want to let his family down because of how hard they've worked and tried to become a part of their goals to move on to the next level. All of the people are in NXT are brought to Gainesville, Georgia for a independent show. Baron Corbin wrestles on the main event. It ends up being that Whoop, Aaliyah, Jasmine, she isn't used on the show, and she was sort of promised a spot, but because of, I guess you can say, the higher power, maybe the authority, somebody wanted to see somebody else wrestle in a spot, and it ends up being Bayley and Carmella going up against Emma, and I guess it would be Dana Brooke in there, and she didn't end up being able to wrestle on her match. Baron Corbin wrestles on the main event in a tag match where it was Finn Balor and Samoa Joe going up against Baron Corbin and Tyler Breeze. It looked like it'd be a fun show to go to. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down if it was in my neighborhood. I just really went to those NXT shows. This was a really good show. I honestly was expecting that it was going to be something like The Ultimate Fighter, or something that would be gimmicky, where I thought it would be stupid if you see like backstage relationships, or you see backstage fighting, and it ends up being garbage, and these are stories that wrestling fans who are watching this reality show would carry these stories for the rest of their life, and things would haunt them. But it looks like it's truly going to be ultimate reality, just them having cameras inside of the training and just sort of building storylines of what's going on from there. So I thought this was an awesome show. I highly recommend you go check it out, and I can honestly say that when it was over, I was dying for more.